Given the general equation of the hyperbola, find the center, vertices, and foci. Now, if you weren't told this was a hyperbola, you should be able to recognize that we have an x squared right here and a minus sign in front of the y squared. When one of the terms is a positive and the other term is a negative, this is how you can recognize right away that we have a hyperbola. First thing we're going to have to do is to change this from general form to standard form so we can find the center. Group all the x's first. Put a plus sign and then group all the y's. Note I have negative y squared. And we're going to bring the minus 10 across to a positive 10. Now we're going to complete the square. Take half of the 8 term is 4 squared, and we have 16. Here we have a little small problem. We have a minus sign in front of our y squared. We take out the minus sign before we try to complete the square with the y. Note here I've added 16 to this side, so I must add 16 to the other side. Now let's complete the square with the other term. I'll rewrite the x for now as such. And we're going to say half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Now we have 26 right here. I haven't added 1, but I've added negative 1 times 1. So in reality, I've added negative 1 to the left-hand side. So I have to add a negative 1 to the right-hand side. Complete the square properly here. This becomes x plus 4 all squared. Y plus 1 all squared equals 25. Now with the hyperbola, the right-hand side has to be negative 1. Sorry, not negative 1. Has to be 1. So we're going to have to divide all the terms by 25. This gives us a very unique hyperbola. We have 25 on the bottom here. Y plus 1 squared, 25 on the bottom here, equals 1. So here we have our hyperbola in standard form. So my center is negative 4 and negative 1. That's where my center is. Now, when we look at the a squared with the hyperbola is a number on the bottom that's positive. This minus sign goes right here. Because this one here is positive, we say a squared is 25. So a equals plus or minus 5. That can lead us to our vertices. Our vertices depend on the a term. Because the a squared term is under the x coordinate, we're going to have to add and subtract from the negative 4 our a term. What it looks like is this: negative 4 plus or minus a, comma, negative 1. The y term doesn't change. So we really have negative 4 plus or minus 5, negative 1. So my first vertice would be 1 and negative 1. And my second vertice would be negative 9 and negative 1. So these vertices are on your vertices are on your actual graph. The next thing we have to do is find the foci. Well, the focus, or the foci when we have more than one, depends on the formula c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Well, this term right here is my b squared, the 25 squared under the y. Very unique to have both the a squared and the y squared, the a squared and the b squared to be the same term, but it can happen. So we have 50, so c equals 5 root 2. Now, that's my c term. Again, we look at the center. Center's negative 4, comma, negative 1. We're going to have to add and subtract the c from the negative 4. So the focus looks like this: negative 4 plus or minus c, negative 1. So my focus is negative 4 plus or minus 5 root 2, negative 1. So it looks like this is a focus: negative 4 plus 5 root 2, comma, negative 1. And the other focus would be negative 4 minus 5 root 2, negative 1. And that's how you do a hyperbola. Find the center, changing it from a general equation to a standard equation. Find the two vertices we have right here and the two focuses.